Among the hardest and most ruthless criminals in prison, there's a code, a grim, unspoken law that stands above all. Those who harm children shall never know peace. To make sure the rule is honored outside the prison walls, there's a special sect of vigilante criminals who deliver punishment far greater than the court's verdict. From moments of calculated assault to acts of sheer rage, join us as we uncover these shocking tales of child molesters instantly killed in jail.
Richard Huckle. Growing up, Richard Huckle was described by his high school classmates as quiet and a bit of a loner. However, at 16, he surprised everyone by joining a school trip to Namibia. It seemed he had developed an interest in helping communities abroad. After finishing school, he attended South Kent College and became a regular at Ashford Baptist Church, where people saw him as a reserved and unassuming young man. In 2005, after college, Richard took a gap year in Malaysia. He seemed drawn to the country, returning frequently under the pretense of helping local churches and communities. By 2010, he had moved there permanently, teaching English and working as a freelance photographer. His photos often captured life in small neighborhoods, earning him a reputation as someone dedicated to making a difference. He even enrolled in an IT course at a local college, though he never completed it. To most, Richard seemed like a kind and well-meaning person, but beneath this carefully constructed facade, something far more sinister was unfolding. In Malaysia, Richard used his roles as a photographer and teacher to get close to children. He didn't stop there. He also traveled to Cambodia and India, pretending to be a compassionate volunteer. In India, he persuaded a pastor to let him visit an orphanage, offering to take photos and create videos for them. No one suspected his true intentions. Meanwhile, investigators in Australia were uncovering a dark web network called the Love Zone, where horrific crimes against children were being planned and shared. They tracked down its leader, Shannon Mull, and secretly took over his account to identify others in the group. Among them, one member stood out, Richard Huckle. His posts were chilling, filled with boasts about the harm he had inflicted on children. In December 2014, as Richard returned to the UK for Christmas, police arrested him at Gatwick Airport. At first, he refused to speak, and they let him stay at his parents' house on bail while they investigated further. But the truth couldn't stay hidden. The day after his arrest, Richard admitted everything to his mother, who was horrified. She immediately called the police, begging them to take him away. When the police arrested Richard, again, they charged him with 91 offenses, including creating harmful materials and abusing children. This time, there was no bail. He was sent to prison where he awaited trial for his unimaginable crimes. Horrifyingly, Richard's victims were between 6 months and 12 years old. To make matters worse, he was boastful about his crimes as he posted incriminating videos on the dark web with inhumane captions. The prosecution revealed that Richard Huckle had harmed over 200 children and created more than 200,000 videos for his gratification. After a lengthy trial on June 6, 2016, he was sentenced to life imprisonment for 22 counts of his crimes, with a minimum term of 25 years before being eligible for parole. However, Richard spent only 3 years in prison. On October 13, 2019, he lost his life after being humiliated and brutally attacked by another inmate, Paul Fitzgerald, who was later sentenced to a minimum of 34 years due to the sadistic and premeditated nature of his assault, which lasted over an hour before prison staff intervened. Just like Richard Huckle, the next convict was deeply trusted by his community. But unlike Huckle, he had a powerful body working in the shadows, cleaning up his mess for decades until his reckoning came and the Grim Reaper found him behind bars.
John Geoghegan. In over 3 decades that John Geoghegan served in 6 different parishes, he faced accusations of inappropriate behavior involving over 130 young boys. In 1991, he was accused of misconduct at a local swimming pool and later found guilty in 2002 for touching a 10-year-old boy inappropriately. This led to a prison sentence of 9 to 10 years. In 1998, Pope John Paul II officially removed Geoghegan from his priestly duties following his conviction. Legal battles continued as victims sought justice. The Boston Archdiocese initially agreed to pay $30 million to 86 of Geoghegan's victims, but later reduced the settlement to $10 million when it looked like the case was losing media attention. During that period, the legal cases against Geoghegan also faced complications. One case was dropped when the accuser decided not to testify, while another was dismissed due to the time limits for prosecution. At the time of his passing, unresolved charges were still under under investigation. Because of how south the case was going and how much it angered the public, Gagan was placed in protective custody at the Sousa Baranowski Correctional Center in Lancaster, but it was there that he eventually met his end. On August 23, 2003, John Gagan's dark past caught up with him in his prison cell. He met a violent end at the hands of fellow inmate Joseph Lee Drew. Drew, already serving life without parole for taking the life of a man who had allegedly made inappropriate advances toward him, saw Gagan as his ultimate target. Drew told authorities that his actions were his own, not influenced or coerced by anyone. According to him, from the moment Drew entered the prison, he had marked Gagan as a prize. He revealed that his deep resentment stemmed from his own traumatic childhood experiences, including abuse at a boarding school. Drew believed it was his duty to make child abusers pay. Yet whispers circulated that Drew may have been paid to take the life of the priest who was about to evade justice thanks to the influence of the Vatican, a theory that remains unproven. On January 25, 2006, a Worcester jury rejected Drew's insanity plea and found him guilty of taking Gagan's life. His punishment was a second life sentence without the possibility of parole. As for Gagan, he was laid to rest on August 28, 2003 in Holyhood Cemetery in Brookline, Massachusetts, a controversial burial for a man whose crimes left a legacy of pain. Unlike Drew, who meticulously planned his crime, the next prison vigilante fought against every instinct to intervene until the weight of the child abuser's heinous acts left him no choice.
In 2014, a man named Steven Sanderson, already serving a life sentence, shocked the world with his actions behind bars. Sanderson had been in prison since 1991 for a terrible crime, taking the life of his girlfriend. His punishment was severe: life in prison with no chance of freedom. For years, he lived quietly, accepting his fate, but everything changed when he crossed paths with Theodore Dyer. Dyer's crimes were so disturbing that even the toughest inmates couldn't stand him. He had abused a 9-year-old child, and in the prison hierarchy, that made him the lowest of the low. To make things worse, Dyer didn't seem sorry. Day after day, he bragged about how he assaulted the minor, justifying his actions without any remorse. Sanderson tried to ignore it, but the constant talk ate away at him. Each word felt like a dagger, each smug comment fueling a storm inside him. The tension between the two men grew, and something dark began to build in Sanderson. On October 2, 2014, that storm finally broke. Early morning, while the prison slept, Sanderson made his move. He waited until the perfect moment, then used a shoelace to end Dyer's life in their shared cell. When it was over, Sanderson didn't try to hide what he had done. Instead, he calmly walked up to a guard and confessed. The news spread quickly, sparking debates about justice, morality, and life in prison. For Sanderson, it was clear. He had reached his breaking point, just as the next vigilante delivered his brand of justice, leaving 2 inmates to face their final judgment. Jonathan Watson, a man serving a life sentence for taking someone's life, admitted in 2020 to have taken the lives of 2 other inmates in a California prison. In a letter, he confessed to attacking the men, both convicted of crimes against children, and explained what led to his actions. Watson shared that he had been moved to a lower security facility, which allowed him to live in a dorm-style setup instead of a private cell. He called this transfer a mistake, especially after one of the inmates he identified as Molesta 1 moved into his living area. According to Watson, this individual openly watched children's shows, something Watson believed was meant to provoke others. Unable to ignore the situation, Watson said he decided to act. He reportedly asked prison staff to move him back to his previous higher security unit, but his request was dismissed. The following day, Watson claimed the same inmates started watching the same show again, which pushed him to act. Using a cane, Watson attacked the man. As he was heading to confess to a prison guard, Watson said he came across another inmate who was a convicted child trafficker. Believing it was the right thing to do, Watson attacked him as well. The prison later confirmed the deaths of 2 inmates, David Bobb and Graham DeLuzzi Conti, both serving life sentences for serious crimes against children. Watson has since been placed in isolation, and the case is under investigation. In his letter, Watson expressed no regret for his actions. He explained that he felt he had nothing to lose and viewed his actions as a way to protect others from harm. Watson even stated he was willing to plead guilty to the killings.
The incident sparked outrage over prison safety and the decision to lower Watson's security classification. As investigations continue with no charges announced, a new case has ignited even fiercer criticism of the system.